And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Around the Bases with Bubba Mo, episode 56, our final divisional previews with the AL East and the NL East this evening. And thanks to the Baltimore Orioles for being the Baltimore Orioles. We have some Oriole news to start things off. But before we do that, I'll introduce my co-host, as always. You can find him on Twitter at Boston_Mo. Mo, how we doing?
We're doing well. How you doing, Bubba?
Oh, just another beautiful, beautiful day. Finally getting rain out here. It's not quite as bad as what you're having to deal with, but much needed. So not too bad. I can't go.
It's like literally it's light outside till 7, which is awesome. And we're getting there, but now we're going to get 6 to 12 tomorrow and then maybe more Sunday night. So, opening day might be in doubt in Boston on April 5th. We'll see.
That's crazy. Man, that sucks. Hate hearing that, but we see it every year. It happens somewhere. Mm-hmm. Let's get at it. We'll do some of the news before we get to our divisional previews, and we'll kick it right off. The Orioles. Last week we gave the Royals some tough words, and I think the Orioles are going to take it this week. Alex Cobb, 4 years, $60 million. Kudos to Alex Cobb and his group of agents or whoever's in charge there. But my God, what's your take on this?
You said it. It's great for Alex Cobb, and how the hell did he held out this long to get 4 years when Lance Lynn got 1? And I'm not saying that they're probably comparable, like they really are. And maybe Lance Lynn knows something that we don't, and he's going to pitch a gem, and he's still 31, so he can still get a 4-year deal somewhere else where the luxury tax will be up in 2019. I don't know, but I don't understand. I don't think this is a bad signing for the Orioles because he's, battle tested in the AL East and the whole AL as a whole. And, they need starting pitching. So for them, it's an upgrade. But where you're going to lose Machado, you're going to lose Jones, you're going to lose Britton. I don't get it for them for 4 years. I know you got to give someone the money, and that will shore up their rotation, at least for next year. And then maybe they go get another bat or whatnot, or Austin Hayes is better than we think he is. And we'll get into them with the AL East previews a little bit later. Now I got to adjust it a little bit. But, like I said, it's an upgrade, obviously, over Mike Wright. I mean, that's an obvious thing to say. But for the direction that they're going in, I don't really understand it.
Yeah, he joins the 2-year contract of Andrew Kashner on the staff.
They brought Chris Tillman.
Yeah, they got Chris Tillman back, Gausman and Bundy, who we're okay with them. That's not the end of the world. But yeah, the options for the 5th starter were Mike Wright, Nestor Cortez Jr., and Miguel Castro. So they had to do something. Now, here's my twist on this. And I literally, this just happened as we were setting up to record. So even all the details aren't out yet. I don't know everything about what's all taking place here. But it makes me really wonder, why didn't they just sign Arrieta for about $8 to $10 million more a year? Now, I could have been okay with the Orioles giving it a shot with Arrieta. I don't understand this one. Do you have any opinion on that?
I mean, the total money is more. And it's
I know that. I don't know what they have available and whatnot, but
yeah, that's what I mean. The total money's more. He's older, and he's been pitching in the NL with, like you said, the fly ball in the fly ball rate that he's had for the Cubs the last couple of years. So that doesn't really trend well for Camden Yards and the rest of Rogers Center and whatnot. So that's the only thing I can come up with is the money part of it, and they think that Cobb's younger, so he'll be okay. They'll get the 30 to 34-year-old years of Cobb.
Yeah, I hope the best for Cobb because it's a good deal. He knows the division, staying in the East, which definitely helps there. But, man, it was his first full year back last year after coming off, I believe it was TJ with him too a couple of years ago. And I just can't help but chuckle against these guys. And when you want to talk fly balls, last year, 30% fly ball. 2016, almost 30%. He's been close to 30% his whole career. So home run to fly ball in 2016, 21.7, and 22 in his last year, 13%. Now he's going to Camden Yards. So let's see how that goes.
Yep.
Let's talk about something a little more exciting in a roundabout way because we know we're going to get him on roughly April 13th. But the Braves made it official. They sent Ronald Acuna down to AAA to quote-unquote season things. But we know we'll see him real quick, and this guy torched spring training. He hit 432, slugged 727, OPS at 1247, 4 homers, 4 stolen bases. He basically was everything and more. Any take on this?
Yeah, no take per se. It sucks, I guess, is the only take. I mean, they figure, and like we've said all along, up until this season, the Players Association for MLB is the best in the world. I mean, they get guaranteed money. They get what they want. They just get everything. Now, when they're younger, they don't get everything. And this shows it. It's like Chris Bryant a few years ago and Boris yelling and screaming about it. But it is what it is. He's going to be down there for 2 weeks, and then he'll be back up, and he'll play every day for the Braves for the next 10+ years. And it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and Chris Bryant actually came out very loud for him because Bryant doesn't talk much. And he flat out said, I want to be the next player representative for the Cubs, if not for Players Association, because he wants to fight this collective bargaining and for especially young players like when he went through it and Acuna and all these other guys, because the way they're seeing the salaries coming out now, these kids need to get paid when they can instead of, something going wrong. And you see Lance Lynn get 1 for 12 and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe you get rid of some sort of the service time thing where it's 2 weeks and you just go to full service time or something like that. I don't know. It's too much for me. It's above my pay grade. But let's go to the next one. Jorge Polanco suspended for 80 games for the Twins. Not great. Really not great. I mean, he had a very good year, and he came out and said he did not knowingly take the steroid. Whoever his trainer is in the Dominican Republic, this happens all the time there, where somehow they throw some stuff in there that they shouldn't be taking, but they do, and they test positive for it. Now he's out 80 games, and also he'll be out for the playoffs as well, which comes with if they do make the playoffs, comes with that suspension. So what do you got on this one?
Yeah, and then that's the part that could really sting here because, they might be able – 80 games is half the season, obviously, on rough math terms, but they can probably fill it in enough to be a wild card team still, but not having in the playoffs could be big. And I'm not saying steroids were the reasons here, but we need to remember back he burst onto the scene in the second half. First half 224, 323 slugging, second half 293, 511 slugging, 10 home runs in the second half compared to 3 in the first. The signs are there. Again, not saying that's the reason why, but it doesn't look good by any means. So I'm curious to how he plays when he gets back, for one, and hopefully this was an accident, but it's hard to believe these guys anymore. It's an accident. Just pretty shitty.
Yeah, not too good.
The Reds have been in the news, and that's pretty surprising coming from the Reds, but they gave Eugenio Suarez a nice little extension, something not expected. It really wasn't, because we previewed the Reds last week and we were talking about Nick Senzel and all this stuff, and we like Suarez, but he gets a nice 7-year contract extension. The deal's $66 million, so he's going to get his money and be secure through 2025. While the Reds have a nice young power hitter in that ballpark for a while, but it kind of leads. It's kind of a two-parter here. Is Nick Senzel, third baseman? We know he's trying shortstop, all these things. They sent him down, and he's even said they told him he's primarily going to play second base. So Scooter Gennett, don't get comfortable. Basically, what do you have on those two things?
That's a tough one because obviously Suarez had a very good year last year, defensively, offensively. He's steadily improved his walk percentage, which has allowed him to be more selective at the plate and has gotten his average up, and his OBP was up 50 points last year. So they have a good player in Suarez, but the problem is they took Nick Senzel second, and it was going to be their franchise player after Votto, and still can be, but now they're flipping him around. You wonder what happens to him with because that happened to Xander Bogaerts in Boston, where they went and re-signed God, I'm gonna forget his name now. Oh, Steven Drew. They went and re-signed, got him in like the middle of the season and moved Xander over to third, and Xander lost like a whole year because of it, because he's just isn't there all mentally. I mean, he's kind of a mental midget in a way. So that hurt him there, and we know how fickle baseball players can be with position changes and changes in any with obviously with closers when their routine gets thrown off, and starters during their games that they're starting in. So I hope that nothing happens like that to Senzel, because the kid is a tremendous talent. And like I said, I own him everywhere in fantasy. So you have to hope that nothing happens there. But yeah, good deal for Suarez. I mean, he's buying out some of his free agent years, but we're going to see this a lot, especially with the way the offseason went.
Yeah, we're going to see that a ton. I like it for the fact that these guys at least are safe. Like, I hate seeing these guys get so underpaid, and this could be an underpayment in the end, but at least we know he's getting his. Longoria did a similar thing, and it was kind of way out of the ordinary then. We're going to see it more now, but it also could work out great for the team. The thought process I had is maybe, okay, Senzel becomes an outfielder. Well, they're stocked in the outfield pretty good. They don't need anything there. Then I think, okay, well, maybe someone finally takes the Votto deal. Well, that's going to be next to impossible. He's there through 2024, getting a lot of money. So that's going to be a tough one to flip, at least in the next couple of years. So I don't know what they're – I just don't see Senzel at second base, but Suarez isn't going anywhere either. So it's a tough spot. And it's, I guess, one way to look at it, it's an embarrassment of riches for the Reds. At the same time, like you said, look at Miguel Sano, couldn't play the outfield, can play third base. There's a lot of players that this happens to.
Yep. Yeah, it's they're not getting rid of that Votto contract. So
nope.
Let's talk about another contract with a much, much bigger name, and that is Jose Altuve. And he signed a 5-year extension, and it starts 2 years after this. So it's really, if you look at the totality of the deal, it's like $7 and $164. So he's getting like $6 million the next couple years or whatever it is. And then I think they gave him a big signing bonus as part of that too. So he's going to get money up front. But at the same time, he's getting $30 million a year. They're getting him up till his like 34, 35-year-old season or something like that, I believe is what it is. I think it's his 34-year-old season. So they're not stuck sort of like the Mariners are with Cano or the Red Sox are with Pedroia. And it's a great deal for him, and it's a great deal for the Astros. And the real question to me, Bubba, is now what do you do with the rest of them? That's the real question. It's great for Altuve. It's great for the Astros. But Springer and the Correas and the Bregmans of the world are coming fast.
Well, this is similar to what we said about the Cubs. Their window's closing because you're going to have to pay Rizzos and Bryants and all these guys. It just happens. The youth movement is great. And this is where the system, benefits these teams because you get these young guys for so long for so cheap, but eventually you got to pay the piper, and it gets difficult. Mm-hmm. And Altuve was interviewed yesterday, and he said part of this deal is he's getting paid very, very well, but it does leave them a lot of money to at least get a couple of those guys or work some things out. That's one thing he was happy about. By taking the big signing bonus, he still gets a big chunk of cash. And just kind of a brief rundown, it's a $21 million signing bonus. $10 million. He gets $10 million at the beginning of the season, $10 million later in 2019. Those are how they're spacing the bonus out. He has $26 million a year, and then he's got like escalators in it, which is cool because then if he still does well, he gets paid a little more. If MVP in his last 3 years of the deal, if he's in the MVP, if he finishes first, he gets $3 million extra. Second, $2 million. Third, he gets $1 million for a maximum of $9 million overall. So he gets escalators if he keeps playing to this level. So I think it's a great deal. It is very true, though. What are you going to do? Because Keuchel's even coming up here. Verlander is coming up, and he's older, so maybe they don't go that route. But a lot of questions in Houston. For now, they're looking good. We already talked about them. Not concerned about them at all. But, yeah, definitely, when we do this podcast next year and the year after, the offseason can be really interesting for Houston. And one thing I want to ask you, and I heard it somewhere else, it was yesterday or today, and it was a good question because – some people are scared. We just mentioned with Suarez that we're going to see a lot more of these extensions, and it makes a lot of sense. But the big guys still got paid this year. Darvish got paid. Arrieta got paid. Hosmer got paid. Maybe not the way we thought they were, but they still got paid. The other guys, the middle guys, are the ones that struggled because even the bottom end guys still kind of got paid. So many are saying Altuve is an MVP. Why didn't he wait? My theory is it's like 2 to 3 more years and anything can happen. But do you see that being a thing where the big guys are still going to get paid and this shouldn't happen for Altuve?
Yeah, I think the big guys will still get paid. I think the one thing with Altuve you have to look at is, the way the size of him, number one, okay? Mm-hmm. He's 27 now. He'll be 28 coming up in May, right? So he's going to be a free agent roughly in his 30-year-old year, a guy that steals 30 bases and – the power somehow came out of nowhere last year. We thought he was really like a 15 15 home run, 35 guy. You know, the average and OBP obviously is there. Those things are going to slowly drop. Now, I'm not saying they're dropping in 2 years, but you're paying for the future years. That's what you're trying to predict as a GM. And if he says to himself, okay, in 2 years, yeah, I still could be 24 and 30 with a 330, with a 330 average. But folks are going to look at it and maybe I'm not getting 30 million a year at that time. We don't know where it's going to be. That's where Scott Boras has to predict it. And that's the other thing in this is Scott Boras clients don't do this. They do not do this. He wants them to go to free agency. So you wonder if he's looking at it too and saying to himself, oh, man, it's been a tough offseason for me. I mean, most of my guys did get paid still, but maybe I got to look at it and take the best deal possible for my players before anything happens. He's got to predict the future as well. So I think he made the right deal at the end of the day because he's guaranteeing himself $30 million a year. He's a 5'6" second baseman who was only going to go down into his 30s in terms of his power and his speed.
Oh, I love the deal.
Yeah.
And he's going to get paid if you can't sleep on $30 million a year. And I like it because it allows them to spend elsewhere. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Just one more for like kind of idea, and this something you could definitely relate to. Now imagine, because this isn't his first deal. He already took that one extension for like 4 years for 30 something that he's on right now. But imagine coming off an MVP year, a little second baseman that did this. He won the Rookie of the Year, the MVP, a World Series MVP. He didn't get paid. You're still on the hook right now for a 6-year, $85 million deal through 2022. What would you have thought if they would have given Pedroia a deal like this? Because at the time, people thought this is kind of who he was also.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up that because in like 2011, 21 homers, 26 RBIs, 307, 387 OBP, doesn't strike out a ton. At the time, that deal, I've said it often, he was going to go, he'd be a free agent same time as Cano. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get the same deal as Cano, but he would have got a lot more than he did get. And now the contract, even though it looked great then, is terrible now because he's just the wear and tear to him. I do think he plays much differently than Altuve, where Altuve's smart about it. He's a great player, goes balls to the wall, right? But Pedroia is reckless. Absolutely reckless, sliding into first base on opening day. I wanted to jump through the TV and punch him a couple years ago because he played through it, but he always has an issue every year with something that really hurts him, and his body is worn down because of that. So I don't know. I can't go back and say I wouldn't have loved it. I think it would have been fine, and it wouldn't have been $30 million because at that time they weren't giving $30 million deals to anybody. But at the same time, I just think they're two different players. I really do. I think Altuve's body will be fine into this deal, whereas obviously Pedroia's hasn't.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on from there. But it's an interesting concept to see how these kind of deals keep evolving with this rough offseason.
For sure.
Jarrell Cotton, a guy that I was looking forward to talking about, or I did talk about last week or 2 weeks ago. And I kind of liked him as a late round option. I thought I was looking bounce back. Well, he's out. Tommy John surgery coming his way. That's a shame. And then the A's kind of countered that by going and signing Trevor Cahill to a $1.5 million deal, which to me seemed outstanding. What do they have to lose there? Any takes on this?
Sucks for Cotton. I mean, it's one of their young guys that they were counting on to hopefully mature. Like you said, we've talked about him, Minaya, and even Graveman a couple weeks ago, Daniel Magnan, to just to name a few. Cahill at 1.5 is fine. I mean, I'm surprised another team. I get he hasn't been healthy, but would you rather Cashner for 2 and 16 or Cahill for 1.5? I guess obviously the risk there is the injury. He's never healthy, but Cashner isn't good. Same goes with Vargas. Now he's hurt. You wonder if the Mets would rather Cahill. So it's a fine deal. I mean, I don't think he'll stay healthy, but there's no risk there for the A's.
A couple good things there is like you mentioned, other teams for 1.5. Cotton, he might not be great, but he could be a 2, like a Yasmaro Petit or whatever, like a 1 to 2, maybe 3 inning guy, one trip through the rotation, a batting order kind of guy. Or the good part is here, he could just be holding a spot for one AJ Puck. So
yes,
a nice cheap rental for AJ Puck, just not bad.
We need him. We need him for sure. Let's get to a couple more things before we get to our previews. This one happened yesterday, and this one sucks. Justin Turner broke his wrist, got hit by a pitch. Happened a few times last year to Freddie Freeman and others. It's just not good for the Dodgers. Looks like they'll go with probably Forsythe at third base, with Utley at second base, and kind of maybe move Chris Taylor to second base and maybe let Vertigo make the team. Matt Kemp now comes in the picture. There's a lot of moving parts here, Bubba. But this is a tough one for everybody. I mean, it's spring training. I mean, it's just guys. The guy lost control. It sucks.
Yeah, that's not to change it to look in my direction. It's happened to Hunter Pence a couple years ago. Yep. I've seen it's happened to a lot of guys, and it's shitty, especially at the end of spring, basically. It's right. Like you've had all this time. You're so close to real baseball, and it happens. Good thing for the Dodgers, and this is one thing we talked about in their NL West preview, is they aren't deep. Well, they're deep kind of at this position. They're not going to replace Turner. But yeah, Forsythe can go to third. They have Chris Taylor. They have Utley, Kiki Hernandez, and don't forget Barnes can play there. Grandal's having a great spring. He can take up more time behind the dish.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts.
There's a lot of parts there, but yeah, it sucks. The reports that came out today, though, is if they already had the MRI, it looks like he won't need surgery, so he'll be out like 4 to 6 weeks instead of more the 8 to 10 week time frame. But still, any guy that has that injury like this, you're going to be struggling for a while, especially power-wise. So not good. I had a lot of people go, "Oh, you're a Giants fan. You must love this." I said, I don't love anybody getting hurt like this. I'd love to beat them with Turner, and Turner's just one of the fun ones to watch. I have no problem with Justin Turner. So, yeah, pretty crappy. Last thing here, I was wondering if you were going to add this. I didn't even notice it until right now. I saw this mentioned today. The MLB wants to play 2 games in London next year. And it's not like the NFL, folks, where we don't send the Jaguars to London. No, they're talking Red Sox, Yankees, which is funny because you'd think they'd want to keep home games and keep 5-hour games on ESPN locally. But they're going to go across the pond. I think it makes sense because you're almost like the 2 closest teams there. So travel-wise, I get all of that. But I don't like the idea of middle of the season. Now, if they wanted to do it in spring training or something, whatever. Middle of the season, I don't get it. What are you thinking?
Oh, well, John Henry, you know who he owns? He owns Liverpool, okay? I'm not saying they're London because they're not. They're 30 minutes away, but or 30, I think 30 to an hour away, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But that's why the Jaguars always play in London, because Shad Khan owns Fulham, who's a team in the 2nd division in England, and they're in London. They're located in London. So
that's
now,
enough soccer talk.
I know that's it. That's it. But I'm just trying to connect it. I'm trying to connect the dots for you to let you know why this is happening. This makes no sense whatsoever. I hate Rob Manfred.
It's one thing after another with him.
It's really one thing. He's becoming the worst commissioner in sports, and that's hard to beat Gary Bettman or Roger Goodell. But he's really becoming the worst commissioner in sports with what he does. There are so many things to do rather than put a guy on second base in the minors, go send people to London. You want to play, go do what they did last year. And, they played at the military base, and then go play in Cuba, regular season game. Go play in the Dominican. Go play in places where people love baseball and people will come watch it. And that's not that you need to grow the sport there because that's what they play, but give those folks an opportunity to watch it. No one's watching in England. Stop this crap. This is stupid. And another thing, the one positive side of this, Bubba, is, it's a 5-hour difference. So we're going to get like a 1 p.m. game on a Thursday or maybe a Tuesday that like I'm able to watch at home rather than watching the Cubs and the Cardinals or Brewers like I normally get. So that's the only positive I see out of it. But I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah. The only positive I see is they're sending the best teams there at least. But yeah, pretty bad.
Yep. Let's get to the previews. This is the fun preview for me. The AL East preview. We start with the Boston Red Sox. You're back-to-back AL East champions, 93-69. The first thing I got going on here with this team is new manager, new culture. I mean, I don't need to go into it about John Farrell. You know what I think of him. We know now what the Red Sox players think of him after what they said in spring training because we can read into the lines and connect the dots on what they said. They didn't say it out loud, but pretty much they did. Okay, Alex Cora will bring more of an advanced analytical approach to the game. And I'm not saying he'll use it like a Gabe Kapler per se, where that was his job before, or make them be vegans and sleep 15 hours a day like Gabe Kapler is going to do. But it will help some of the younger players with their approach to the plate and some of the experienced pitchers Sale to not come back out in the eighth after 105 pitches in an 8-1 game in Baltimore that meant nothing to get his 300th K. And that's what Farrell did last year. And you're going to see it at the beginning of the year. There's going to be a lot of 6-inning games, and people are going to be pissed in daily fantasy and pissed in a bunch of other places because he's only throwing 6 innings, 95 pitches when they're up by 8-1 or something like that, when he could easily come out and throw 110 for 7. I'm just telling you, at the beginning of the season, they're going to monitor that. They want him ready in September and ready in October. We don't care about April and May. They're going to ease him into it. Chris Sale has already said it, and I think Cora is the right guy for this. He identifies with young players. He was in Houston, helped them win a World Series. So he can do both the analytical approach and the feel of the game, which John Farrell had no feel for. So this is a good change for the Red Sox.
Yeah, it's a really good change. It's one of the many first-year managers we're seeing, or the couple of them in this division alone. So it is a very nice change there. Question I had for you on the culture part, you mentioned he can relate to the young players and help the young players. I've been noticing since Poppy left, you have your young guys in Betts, Benintendi, Bogarts, those guys. Then you have Pedroia. Is there kind of a riff between those two, or whose team is it?
Hey, that's a great question. You would think that Pedroia is the leader, but
he's not.
He's really always been the quiet leader. Like you want to play like Pedroia, like I mentioned earlier. He plays 100% no matter what the score is, no matter what the record is. That's how he plays. So the leader part is tough. I would hope that a Mookie Betts comes in, or now maybe a JD Martinez comes in and starts leading. I don't know. Maybe Hanley Ramirez on the TB12 method. Maybe he's learning to be a leader a little bit. No, seriously. But that's the tough one. Cora played with Pedroia in the 2007 World Series team. This is going to be fine. There's going to be no rift. I would assume he'll be with the team while he's hurt. Maybe he won't travel with them as much because he'll be training. I don't know whether he'll be in extended spring training or not. I don't think they've put that out there yet. So that's something to watch as well. If he's not there, to someone else sort of take over. But the scary part of this, Bubba, is it really is David Price's clubhouse. I mean, these guys follow that guy. I'm telling you. These guys follow that guy. It's just there's something there. They all love him, and they follow that guy. So that's the only wrinkle that there is with the leader part of it.
That is terrifying.
Very terrifying. And if I can get to my next point now, as I sort of nice little segue there, can David Price stay healthy? I mean, that's the question of the year all the time. There's no unique elbow talk right now, and this is going to be crazy for you because I feel like all last year I said David Price sucks, whatever. I think the answer is yes. I think he's going to stay healthy. I really do, because I mentioned before, they're going to watch Sale's innings, and there's no reason to, because he hasn't had any injuries per se, but the fatigue as he goes into the season in terms of his results are there. David Price has the issue with his elbow. We haven't heard any discomfort this spring. He's pitched really well, and I don't look at spring training stats a ton, but he's coming off the performance in his bullpen out of the playoffs, which he was, dynamite. And it wasn't like he was throwing 98 because he knew he was only throwing a couple innings. He was really near his 95, 96 velocity that he normally is at. So he didn't let it loose there. And don't get me wrong, I still 150,000% want him to opt out after this year so his money can be used elsewhere in the next few years, and you don't have his 33 to 36 years or 34 to 36 years where he's not a dominant pitcher at 30 million per. You know what you're going to get out of Sale. If you get the 2016 second half price, that's might be the best 1-2 punch in the league, right next to Scherzer and Strasburg, and just to maybe even the Cubs, couple of guys that they have. But that's one of the best duos, probably top 3 in the league.
Yeah, no, he like you mentioned, he came back, velocity was back. Overall numbers don't look too bad for what we think of his season last year. He's actually pretty darn good, and he is still one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. He's going through injuries, going through change of scenery. He's kind of a bit of a mental midget at times, one would say. So if he can just get comfortable and maybe being the leader in the clubhouse is something that'll help with that, you might be onto something there, because the stuff seemed to be coming back. And you're right. You pair that up with Sale, maybe get a decent Pomeranz or Eduardo Rodriguez or something like that, even Ricky Porcello. It can be a scary little staff you got put together there to go with that powerful offense.
For sure. Yeah. And speak, another good segue by you there. We get into this question. Will the young bats continue to get better? I mean, that's the big question here. Was we lost Poppy. We thought that maybe Hanley could fill the void for him, and he really didn't do that last year, although Hanley claims, and he was, because he had shoulder surgery, that his shoulder was gone. He was basically swinging with one arm the whole year. So hopefully maybe he comes back and he gets more focused.
We are doing the AL East preview. He's in the middle of his Red Sox talk about the young bats. So just give Mo a second to get back on, then we'll rock and roll. And Mo is back. Yep, you're back. Just start over with your young bats.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I already spoke about the approach at the plate with some of the guys. You know, Xander in particular would take the first pitch right down the middle, get behind in the count. It looked absolutely lost when you get a breaking ball. I mean, that approach Cora has talked about all spring, where he's going to change that. You know, they're not going to take every first pitch. You know, there are times where they will, obviously, with different pitchers to get to some bullpens and whatnot. But you're going to see a lot of aggressive at bats by this young team. And you're going to see Xander, Benny, Betts, and even JBJ have better years. And that comes with help from the JD Martinez signing as well. They have protection in that lineup. There's not as much pressure on them. The pressure is on JD. The pressure is on Hanley to provide the power. And I think it's going to be a very good year for these young guys.
Oh, I think it's going to be a great year. I've already talked about in our outfield previews how high I am on Benintendi. I got no problems there. Betts is literally one of the best outfielders in baseball. And you just happen to add JD Martinez, you know, Jackie Bradley. You keep talking highly of him. Xander, you hit it on the head. This team is very, very good, very, very young outside of a couple players. And some guys didn't quite live up to the hype last year. I think they will this year. So it's a very scary team. It's going to make for a heck of a race up top, the Red Sox and this one other team in the Bronx.
Yeah, and just one more quick thing. I mean, they were 10th in runs last year and you know, 24th in home runs, and they added JD Martinez and hopefully a fully healthy Hanley Ramirez with a full season at Devers. I just don't see how this is not a top 3 offense in baseball. I don't see it.
Yep, I can't argue that. It's definitely top 5-ish or so. There's no question about that. So that being said, let's go on to their big competition, their big rival, their London counterparts, the New York Yankees, coming off a 91-71 season, wild card team, so close to the World Series. Quite a postseason run they had there. Kick it off with the simple of the simple here. They are the new Bronx Bombers. Mr. Giancarlo Stanton has made his way to Yankee Stadium, and it's terrifying because you put him with Aaron Judge, who was your AL Rookie of the Year. He was just a monster with 52 homers. You got Gary Sanchez, 33. We know what Stanton did in the NL Rookie of the Year or MVP award. It's just insane what those guys can do, and I don't expect Judge to be as good, but Sanchez should be just as good. Stanton, I don't see a gigantic drop-off there. You know, you got guys like Didi, Aaron Hicks, who I think is just outstanding, and so many more guys they have there. It's going to be home run derby many nights in Yankee Stadium and even on the road. So this isn't one I have to go too deep in. This offense is going to be one of the more terrifying ones in all baseball. And if you have a chance to catch batting practice, I recommend it.
Yeah, it's going to hopefully, you know, the Yankees-Red Sox games, you know, obviously they take 4.5, 5 hours, but they're going to be must-watch games, every single one of them, no matter who's pitching. It's just going to be must-watch. And every time those 3 guys come up, Sanchez, Stanton, Judge, right in a row, 3, 4, 5, maybe a little bit different. Maybe one of them bats 2. there's a possibility they hit the ball out of the ballpark every single time. And it sucks for me being a Red Sox fan, but it's exciting to watch, as a baseball fan, to see, what they could possibly accomplish. Now, I think Judge is going to regress a bit. I'm not going to say quite a bit. I'm going to say regress a bit. I think something is there. I don't think he's that good as he was last year. But Sanchez, Stanton, legit, and we'll see how Stanton controls that New York market. That's another thing to watch out for. And I don't think enough people are talking about that right now.
Yeah, no, that's something you have to adjust to, being left alone in Miami and now you're in the Bronx. Another thing with this lineup is they do strike out a lot. So see if they can make that adjustment as well. Because
Chris Sale 20 Ks.
Well, it's not out of the question. We saw that was their biggest problem in the postseason is if they weren't putting the ball in play, we saw how minuscule that offense can get real quick.
There are a lot of things I love about Fairfield. I love the community aspect that it brings. I love that this is like a home away from home for me. I also love the staff here, the ACs, RAs.
Is that you?
It's not me.
The opportunities, the educational opportunities in Fairfield are I feel like no other place. They're amazing.
Let me close on my.
I probably love the most about Fairfield is the small.
Folks, this podcast is brought to you by Fairfield University. We have a new sponsor.
All my websites are closed. No idea where that's coming from.
That I met, especially here at the diversity office. I know
It's gotta
everyone's
be you.
nice, and it's just feels like a community and having like a family, some people to connect with, and it just feels like home. I love this whole community and this campus and the atmosphere.
Dude,
it's got to be you.
Dude, not to throw it out there, but I was listening in my headphones, and we can just talk about this. And I had something open on my phone, whether it was Barstool or something, and all of a sudden, an ad. Like I said, Fairfield University. It's a lovely university in Connecticut. For those of you on the West Coast and Central, lovely D1 university. But yeah. Let's continue, Bubba.
I was like, I closed every window. What the hell's going on here?
I just started closing everything.
I was panic mode.
Apologies.
All right.
Apologies.
Hey, this is what happens. Welcome to the Around the Bases pod. 56 episodes in. We got this figured out. Aaron Boone, as many in your neck of the woods call him Aaron Effin Boone.
Yep.
He's coming to manage the Yankees. And this is one we talked about in depth when it happened, because we had no idea why this was the choice. Everybody that you talk to says this is great. It all makes sense. I'm not sold on this, but I guess, when you got a team that's as good as they are and you just need to keep everybody level, he does apparently know the stats pretty well. It's a theme we saw this offseason with hiring managers. And the biggest thing that I can agree with is he can handle this New York market. He knows this New York market, and that'll help these younger kids out a ton. But Aaron Boone, I think, is going to have a way bigger a role this season than people think, because that was one thing Joe Girardi didn't do great, was handling the rough situations very well. And Aaron Boone's going to have to do that, and we'll see how that takes place.
Yeah, you know what I think all along? They botched this situation. They brought a guy in that has no managerial experience. Yeah, I know he's been around the game for a long time. His father was a professional. His brother was a professional, so he's been in it for a long, long time, but there's going to be a lot of growing pains, and I'm excited to be on Yankees Twitter when those things happen, because I will be there, folks. You will hear from me this year, I'm telling you, because this is going to be a debacle at first. I'm just telling you, it's not going to go well the first few months. I could be wrong, but this is him managing all those egos in that clubhouse is going to be insane, and it's going to be a tough situation for him.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun there, and it'll lead to my last point is Miguel Andujar and Gleyber Torres both had pretty darn good springs for the most part. We know Torres coming off his Tommy John surgery, non-throwing arm. We were expecting him to come up. They signed Neil Walker, traded for Brandon Drury, so there's openings there. But we saw the Andujar power spring. He hit 4 homers and 42 at bats, and then Gleyber Torres just is outstanding. He had a rough spring, he had $160. But both these guys can play, and the question is, when do we see these guys, or do we see these guys? I'm pretty positive we'll see these guys. But, hey, either they struggle or the Yankees are rolling. Why rock the boat? It's something to keep in mind, because we need to remember the Yankees were just rebuilding recently, and they still have so much young talent down below that I guess they weren't rebuilding, they were reloading, as you like to say. So I'm curious of when we see Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar, because they could be those kind of mid-season call-ups that just completely spark a team to the next level.
Yeah, it's really a tough one. You got Drury. He's a decent player. You got Neil Walker. Neil Walker is only a 1-year deal. You can get rid of him whenever the hell you want. So I think you see, as long as they both do what they're supposed to do in AAA, you probably see Torres sooner rather than later at second base, unless Neil Walker's, hitting the cover off the ball and into that short porch in right field. Andujar, I'm not sure, because I do think Drury, at third base will be fine for them. I don't think they're not asking a lot about him. He's batting down the bottom of the order. So I don't think we'll see Andujar unless he rakes, and then maybe they bring him up and say he doesn't have anything to prove anymore. We can get him at bats every now and then, whether it's at DH or maybe they put him at first base if Greg Bird is struggling a little bit. So there's a lot of moving parts there, but I think you'd see Torres, by June at least, as long as he's tearing the cover off the ball.
Yep.
All right, let's get to the Tampa Bay Rays. Last year, 80 and 82. They were Bubba's darling. They tried, they did what they could, and they didn't get there. And now, is this actually a rebuild? You just mentioned the word retool. I don't think that's the word either, but at the same time, they didn't really tear it down per se. Like they had to they traded Longoria. They're the best player in franchise history. They obviously traded. They released C-Dick, your boy, Yancey's boy, all-star last year, but was much, much worse in the second half. And that was not that that's what he is real, but he's really not a tremendous player. And there's so many of them in this day and age, which is why they replaced him with CJ Cron. And then they traded Souza and replaced him with Carlos Gomez, along with Odorizzi in the C-Dick release as well with the trade to Minnesota. So they've done a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. And I know Odorizzi's a big fly ball guy and he gave up a shit ton of homers, but they assumed they had Honeywell to come in and be in the rotation, come the middle of April when they only had 4-man rotation, then we're going to go 5. They don't have that anymore. And what they've done, and I think when we talked to Jason Collette, they're trying to create a better defensive and a better team that creates more contact at the plate than they have before. They struck out a ton, obviously, with Corey Dickerson and Souza and Longoria and whatnot. So getting rid of Longoria, the three of them, and C-Dick, like I mentioned, who's an all-star, doesn't help them in the name department when it comes to building a new stadium in downtown Tampa. And I think that's the only thing to take away there is they got rid of them. But at the same time, with Dickerson and Souza, they didn't lose a ton if you're talking wins above replacement. They did with Longoria, but in the name department for folks in Tampa that don't watch the team regularly, I'm talking people in the government that are going to approve whether they give taxpayers money to build a new stadium, it hurts a ton.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think rebuild is not the right word, so I agree with you there because they can still put a decent competitive roster out there. Maybe not great, but if you think of what the Pirates are doing and some other teams, I don't hate this. The interesting part will be the 4-man rotation, using the bullpen up, how that's all going to work. That'll be the real interesting part. But all in all, when you just look at the lineup per se, it isn't a ton different than what we see year in and year out from the Rays for the most part. There are some weaknesses, or maybe it's a little older in certain spots, but all in all, I think we'll be surprised with what takes place. Yeah,
and they made those trades with the next couple points that I kind of had in mind here with the tough luck and young injuries. So they made those trades, and as I alluded to earlier, they lost Honeywell until probably mid-season 2019 because I don't see them rushing him at the beginning. He'll probably get some innings in AA and AAA, at the beginning of 2019. And then they also lost Jose De Leon, who was the centerpiece of the trade with Logan Forsythe, who's expected to eventually become part of the rotation, but could have been better suited for the bullpen based off of obviously what Collette said to us in the interview about a month ago. And those are 2 big losses because those are 2 of their big-time pitching prospects. The rest of the pitching prospects are a little bit lower. So those are real tough luck there because they were going to build it around pitching and defense. and sort of scrap runs here and there, and that just isn't going to happen right now with their young arms.
Yeah, it's an absolute shame losing Honeywell, De Leon. They're going to be grinding it out here, and it's just you wonder if the day's ever going to come where Archer gets dealt. They're going to wait for the right deal, of course, but it's just a matter of time. I pray nothing happens like Faria and Snell and some of these other young guys, because the Rays can't really afford another break like they've been getting.
Yeah, I mean, and those top three aren't terrible for them, and obviously Archer's the head of that, and I don't think that he'll be traded this year at all. I mean, they have him; his contract is really unbelievable for them. And the last part of it with that lineup is when will we see the healthy prospects, and the main ones you talk about is Willy Adames and Jake Bauers. I mean, you'd think Adames would be in Tampa rather quickly. I mean, he's literally played a full season at every level, and other than his glove, Echeverria is awful. I mean, just awful at the plate. He offers no value offensively. So you have to think that we'll see Adames pretty soon, although it's kind of weird that Steamer and the rest of the projections don't have him for a ton of at-bats this year. I wonder a little bit what's that about, because he's literally been at every single level for a full season in his minor league career. So he's gone through the motions. He's done everything he needs to do. The second guy that I mentioned, like I said, is Jake Bauers, who's in the same boat. You know, he literally played at every level and has nothing else to prove in the minors. I mean, some people will talk about, you know, will his average be above 250, 260? You know, maybe not, but he's decent walk percentage. I would guess he comes up in June after maybe the failed Denard Span experiment, who they got back in the Longoria trade because of money, or they trade Span and give him a chance at DH and move him around in the outfield and first base. Maybe CJ Cron doesn't stay healthy and he gets a shot there as well. So we're waiting for those two, and the guys that are long-term, you know, Brandon McKay and others are the other guys that we're waiting on. But those are the two that's closest that should be up this year, hopefully early in the year.
Yeah, Adames should have been up last year. I don't understand the Echeverria thing at all. That should never have happened to begin with, and definitely shouldn't happen this year. If you're going to release a guy like Cedek, why aren't you releasing Echeverria? That makes zero sense at all. Jake Bauers, you know, the outfield's kind of packed at the moment, but Malik Smith's already banged up, you know, like you said, Span and some others. See how that all plays out, but you think they're going to have to, at least in the second half, unless they run hot like they did last year, then maybe they just, you know, take their time yet again. But you think Adames for sure, and then maybe that power of Jake Bauers, maybe Brad Miller's and CJ Cron aren't the answers at the, you know, playing first base roulette there. They have Miller at second right now, but they have a lot of moving pieces. And don't forget Christian Royals there too.
Oh, yeah, your boy.
Oh, my boy. Let's go to the Toronto Blue Jays, coming off a rough year at 76 and 86. And I'm going to get right to the point. He's been rumored in trades. He's coming up to be a free agent here pretty darn soon. We're talking Josh Donaldson. Got one of the biggest arbitration deals in history this past year. We know what he can do. He's definitely one of the best power hitters in all of baseball. Having a rough spring, hasn't even gone yard yet, hitting 211. But last year in just 113 games, 33 homers, 270 average. You know what you're going to get from Donaldson year in and year out, even without a full season. He dominates baseball. But I'm not expecting much from Toronto this year. A lot of people aren't expecting much from Toronto this year. So you have to start to wonder, when are they going to deal him? Because they said they're not dealing him because they're going for it. But come deadline, they might need to start, you know, grabbing some more pieces to the puzzle here. So my question is, do they deal Donaldson, or do they try to fight it out with him?
And that's where the second wild card comes in and helps them but hurts them. If there's one wild card, then they might be out of it and say, okay, we're going to trade him. But where the second wild card comes in, you've seen over the years that there aren't a ton of teams that are ready to sell. I mean, I think that's the big part of it. I think they're going to be in it the whole year. I really, really do. As long as Aaron Sanchez stays healthy and Stroman stays healthy and the rest of that staff's okay. And, you know, sooner in the back end, the lineup is interesting. That's the one thing that's a little scary. But, you know, if all the guys stay healthy, and I know it's a lot to ask considering Donaldson was hurt last year, Stroman's already hurt, Sanchez always has blisters. But in terms of a second wild card, I think they're going to be in it. And when I mean in it, they're not going to be more than 3 or 4 games back, I think, for most of the season up until the trade deadline. So that's the tough part of it.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next point is, Do they go all in and go for it? Maybe make some trades? Like, do they go Minnesota Twins and they go from buying to selling and selling to buying all over again because they're that close? They have, you know, the big stud prospects and Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette at Double A, and you know Anthony Alford. They just can't find the spot in the outfield for him because they keep signing old veteran outfielders or trading for them for some reason. So they got to find the point of, are they going to go all in and make some moves, or are they going to sell because they got pieces they can move? You know, we saw the Mets trade Granderson last year. He could fetch at least something minimal. I mentioned Donaldson, Russell Martin, probably not much. Kendrys Morales, who knows? But a guy like maybe he's super cheap, so you might be able to get a big return in like a Kevin Pillar. You got the old pitchers. J.A. Happ could make someone very happy at the trade deadline. Jaime Garcia, we saw him got moved twice last year, and they built up the pen, which we'll talk about in a minute. So they have pieces they can deal if necessary, but it kind of goes along with what you said. If they're in it or they're not, I just hate the waffling game. I feel the team just needs to make up their mind. And you just, you know, sell and bring up these prospects early and get them ready to go, because Vlad Guerrero and Bichette have had great springs. They've had great minor league careers. They really don't have much more to prove to me. It's more of just when are they coming up right about now. So I hope they're not waffling like you're saying, and they make a decision and start going to the future, because to me, even after this year, they're going to have to kind of blow it up to try to get back to competing with the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Yeah, everything I've heard from upper management from last year to the offseason, they're still going for it. Now, whether they're smart enough to change, like you said, I'm not sure. I really don't think I would lean towards no. I would lean towards the owner has made probably more money in the last few years than he has owning that team, just based off the runs that they had and the players that they've developed because of that. I mean, that's a steal with that Donaldson trade that they made. And obviously Joey Bats had, fell down real quick, but they stole that signing for a few years as well. So I would think that they're probably going to hold firm and try to get another playoff game if possible. I just really do.
Yeah, and that leads me to my last point. Is you kind of hinted on some things earlier. Their pitching stuff and the moves they made to their bullpen, they are formidable enough to keep them in this, I think. We have the J.A. Haps, who's as consistent as they come. He was announced the opening day starter today. You mentioned the Aaron Sanchez issues. If you can get rid of the bullpens, they swear they've remedied that. We've heard those stories before. But, hey, Rich Hill didn't get one last year, so maybe there's something they can figure out. And Sanchez and stuff, he's never, knock on wood, had a bad year. He's been very, very good when he's pitched. And you got Estrada and Stroman and Jaime Garcia. So all guys that you can at least trust to take the ball and more often than not get blown up. So they have good pitchers there. And then Roberto Osuna, we've talked about him in depth many times. The Sungwon Oh signing, Clippard, John Axford's just a veteran arm. But you have Loop and Barnes and Tepera. They have a bunch of young, talented players that can kind of get the job done in the bullpen. So pitching actually could be interesting for them. They only have one lefty in the pen, which I don't like at all in that division. But all in all, the pitching, every year, we even did this last year, and I remember when we got ready to preview them, I was like, wow, their pitching's better than I thought it was going to be. And every year I look at it, and it's much better than I think it's going to be. And I think that's what's going to help them hang around, because you look at that lineup, and yes, Donaldson's great. Does Smoke have another Smoke season? We saw what Russell Martin did last year, hoping for a bounce back. Kendrys Morales, not bad. Grichuk, I like, but is he playing every day? There's a lot of question marks. Aledmus Diaz is your starting shortstop. Curtis Granderson is your starting outfielder. We said roster resources have been off lately. Hopefully those are off. But there are question marks with that starting lineup that these pitchers are going to have to keep them in games more often than not. This isn't the E5 Bautista Donaldson teams that just scored at will. This is a different ball club, in my opinion.
And the one guy you didn't mention in that bullpen is Joe Biagini, who needs to become that Davinsky, that Andrew Miller, that Archie Bradley in that.
I didn't mention him because roster resource sucks. He's not even on it.
Because he just got moved to the bullpen, I think, is what they did.
No, he's not even on the bullpen. He's nowhere on the starting staff.
Okay. So, he's going to be in that bullpen. Roster resource is really bad lately. I mean, this is just, like I said, we got to create our own here or something, because this is just terrible. But I mean, you look at that 2016 year he had with the Blue Jays: 60 appearance, 67 innings, he 3.06 ERA and 2.95 FIP. And with him being stretched out last year, you could see him, like I said, in that Davinsky, Archie Bradley, Andrew Miller role where he pitches in the high leverage situation. So I'm excited to see what they get out of him this year.
Yeah, I like Biagini a lot. I think that could be a great role for him. So hopefully that works.
Yeah, well, let's get to the Baltimore Orioles, 75-87. We were finally right about them. They finished last in the division, so that made me kind of happy. Now, I prepped for this before the Alex Cobb deal, so I'm going to try and do a little bit of both here.
You can just add it to part one.
Yeah, I could. So the part one here, the first point is it was a debacle of an offseason. I mean, it really was. The whole offseason was held hostage by Manny Machado trade rumors, and it got worse when Zach Britton ruptured his Achilles in December. And then they also went and signed Colby Rasmus, Alex Presley, and Danny Valencia as non-roster invitees, which the awful roster resource has 2 of them in the lineup and the other one on the bench. So with the Trumbo injury as well. So that one's a tough one. They went and signed Alex Cobb, which, again, doesn't make it as bad as it was in terms of the talent of that rotation. At least that gives them a decent third starter behind Bundy and Gaussman, because Cobb is fine in that division. Now, he's not a world beater. He's not going to be at the top of your rotation, but as a 3-4 guy, that's not terrible. Would I have given him 4 years? Probably not. But overall, for the future of this franchise, I did not like this offseason.
Yeah, it's really nothing to elaborate there. Once they realized they weren't going to move Machado, they needed to start focusing on reality. And maybe they were still drunk on the Machado ideas because Cashner's not that reality. Cobb, we already talked on Cobb. I don't hate it. I don't like it. They have a ton of Rule 5 picks that they're trying to keep on the roster, which always handcuffs you a bit there out the gate. So, yeah, this is going to be rough. You're hoping for guys like Beckham and Scope and Adam Jones to do his thing. Maybe a Chris Davis, Mancini play. It's rough. Like you said, Austin Hayes isn't even on the roster. So there's some very interesting things taking place in Baltimore.
Yeah, and to continue off that point is the second one is there's no direction. There really is. I mean, Dan Duquette has put this team in an awful spot. It's not completely his fault. As I've mentioned many times, Peter Angelos is one of the worst owners in sports. They should have traded Britton and Machado at the trade deadline last year, and now they won't get much for them, as it would be a 3-month rental, and Britton, you don't even know if he'll be healthy. Not only that, he went and gave 2-year, $16 million deal to Cashner when he could have gotten Lynn, and I had Cobb there, and now they got Cobb on a 4-year deal. I thought they could get him on a 1-year deal like Lynn. Clearly something happened there where we just don't know, where we talked about earlier, why Lynn got 1 and Cobb got 4. So this team is in rough shape after this season because they're going to lose Britton. They're going to lose Machado. And then also Adam Jones is a free agent as well. Now, I don't think they'll re-sign him just because he's a little bit older. So there's no point there. And, you know, if you believe in Austin Hayes and he's almost ready. And so I just think overall, I mean, their farm system isn't great. They've got a few guys there that have a shot, but they just really don't have a lot there to look forward to in the next few seasons.
Yep, this is the definition of a future rebuild. They're going to give it one shot and hopefully trade a few pieces at the deadline. That's about it, because the only direction they have right now is going towards last place yet again.
And the last point is Gaussman and Bundy need to fulfill their potential. I mean, folks, they both were, you know, the darlings, and the Orioles thought that they had the 2 studs that were ready to take over with a tremendous offense and lead them to many different playoff appearances, and that just hasn't happened. So if they want to somehow root for this team to get a wild card spot, these 2 really need to pitch like they did in the second half. And, you know, as everyone says, I never know what to do with Gaussman in fantasy. I mean, I drafted him a few places last year, and then the first half happened. He sucked, but he had a decent second half, 3.41 ERA. Ks per 9 went up. Walks per 9 went down. He's still at a 4.19 FIP, but he showed some signs that he could be that close to the top of rotation guy, you know, 2-3, something like that they've always thought he could be. Bundy did better in the second half as well, 4.09 ERA and 3.51 FIP. Folks said he started throwing, you know, a cutter, but it was really more of a slider, being around 9 miles an hour slower than his fastball. So, I mean, he threw that slider like 35% of the time, according to Brooks Baseball, in the last 2 months of the year, and really had a tremendous second half, you know, by his standards. And I think the number one thing with Bundy is he was healthy, and that has been a struggle for him through his career. So they really need to hope that they, pitch like everyone thought they were going to pitch when they were top prospects.
Yeah, and those definitely are the two top guys. Adding Cobb to that doesn't stink by any means, so that gives him at least a okay 1, 2, 3. I do like Bundy a lot. I think he can take that next step. Definitely, we got to remember 2016 was his first real action in the bigs, coming back from injuries, and 170 innings last year. Pitched very, very well. I think he'll continue to improve. He's having an okay spring. He's given up a bunch of runs, but he's striking guys out. He's going to tell you that thing he's working on things. So that's what you believe what you want there. He's still only 25 years old. Yeah, he's still only 25 years old. So I like where he's going. Gossman, you asked what do you do with Gossman? If you draft him in a rotisserie league, you play him every time because by the end of the year, the stats will be okay. If you try to play the guessing game, you're gonna want to just call it a day because the odds of guessing right aren't great, especially when Buck Showalter doesn't realize he pitches great with Caleb Joseph. So let's start Wellington Castillo. Yeah. Well, we don't have Castillo this year. We got Chance Sisco. So to see how that works, he had a great rapport with Caleb Joseph, especially in the second half, like you said. So maybe there's something to build off of there. They are two really good young arms. And you also got to remember that ballpark doesn't help pitchers out very much. It's like it's not Coors Field, but in the summertime, that ball flies. So it's going to hurt a lot of pitchers and especially young pitchers. But, they are the future of that team. It's one way to look at it. But I don't think it's going to matter this year.
Nope. Okay, let's do the predictions. You're going to call me biased, call me a homer. I've got the Red Sox at 1, Yankees at 2. Blue Jays at 3, Rays at 4, and Orioles at 5. I just think the Red Sox rotation, again, provided health, is better than the Yankees rotation. Obviously, Yankees bullpen is much better, best bullpen in baseball. But I think the Red Sox offense and pitching will get them there. They'll figure it out. And it's going to be a close race all season. I really hope it comes down to the end. And I have to look at their schedule when you give your Yankees winning the division, but because I feel like that should be the last series of the year every single year, especially for the next few years with the talent that both teams have.
Yeah, real quick, Pacoda has the Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, Jays, Orioles. They even have the Rays at 83 and 79. So something in there, Pagoda, and this was updated on March 19th, so yesterday. So I really would love the biggest thing is the Rays defense is one of the best they have ranked in baseball, surprisingly, for runs allowed, defensive runs allowed.
Yep.
So my standings: Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, Jays, Orioles. Yankees, Red Sox. I think it's kind of going to be a battle to the end. Pacoda doesn't. Pacoda has the Yankees 8 games better than the Red Sox, but I thought that gap was rather wide. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But either way, I'm pretty sure both of them make it to the postseason. Just a matter of who do you get 3 in a row, or do the Yankees take one? Is what it comes down to.
Final 3 games of the year: Fenway Park, Yankees, Red Sox. Let's go.
Get your popcorn ready.
Let's go.
All right, let's go to the National League East, where it's top. It's kind of a one and done, and then some really intriguing young teams. We'll kick it off with the Washington Nationals, coming off a 97 and 65 season. They are very, very good. Now, I'm not going to even try to sugarcoat this one. They're very, very good, and they're bringing guys back. We've talked about it many times. Is they got to do it now because they got free agents coming up. Bryce Harper's about to leave town pretty soon. Scherzer and company. These deals are going to be wrapping up here in the next couple of years, so it's time to get in and get it done. And my number one point was we finally saw it last year. We saw a Strasburg season of 175 innings pitched, which in this era in baseball is tremendous. And if you think about it, their top 4 pitchers, Scherzer 200 innings, Strasburg 175, Gio 201, Tanner Roark 181 innings pitched. 4 of their pitchers pitched more innings than a ton. I can't remember the exact stat, but 175 plus innings might have been like 25% of starting pitchers. So that's a stat in itself there. But Strasburg's my main one because he showed – we've always known he was great, but he showed what he can do on a full season. He was the runner-up to Scherzer in the Cy Young. He had a 2.52 ERA, Scherzer 2.51, but Strasburg's FIP 2.72, xFIP 3.72. The numbers didn't lie. He was very, very good. Great ground ball rate, strikeout rate close to 30%. home run per 9 of .67. This guy was dealing in 28 starts. He's going to be 20. He's 28 right now. I don't know when his exact birth date is, but the big question is if Strauss can do this again to give him and Scherzer that 1-2 punch. I hate to break your David Price bubble, but this is a much better 1-2 punch than the Red Sox. And as far as those two go, to me, it's as far as the Nationals can go in the postseason because I'm pretty confident in them winning the NL East. But with the big-time Strasburg production again, this might be the time they finally get it done because Dusty Baker won't be there to screw stuff up.
Oh, you're not breaking my bubble. Trust me. I have them above them. Obviously, I just think that they could, get into that stratosphere. But I think, you're absolutely right. It's Scherzer Strasburg. I mean, it's pitching in the playoffs. You've seen it up close with Bumgarner. We've seen other guys in the postseason carry their teams. And now the difference with this team is, the back end of that rotation. You mentioned Gio Gonzalez. He's in a free agent year, getting older. Same with Roark. AJ Cole's currently that fifth starter. They have a better bullpen this year, and that's all reliant on health because we all know Sean Doolittle doesn't stay healthy. Ryan Matson's almost 38. Kinsler's 34. This is all dependent on health. But at the beginning of the season, beginning of last season when we started this podcast, it was when are they going to get a closer? When are they trading for David Robinson? It's got to be soon. It's got to be soon. They went and they got Doolittle, they got Madsen, they got Kinsler, and they were all tremendous. So I think that's the difference this year is that I don't think there'll be as much strain on Scherzer and Strasburg to go as far as they normally do in games like Dusty Baker had to last year.
Yeah, and one last thing on Strasburg, you hit on the postseason. We can't forget the game in Chicago last year where he wasn't going to play, he wasn't going to play. He made 2 starts in the NLDS, 14 shutout innings, no earned runs, 2 earned. He gave two regular, but no earned runs, 22 strikeouts in 14 innings pitched. You couldn't have asked for more, but he had a 1-1 record. He lost one of those games.
Yeah,
that's how bad it was. You get him and Scherzer, it's going to be interesting. Next up, point 2, another new manager. It's a theme in the East, it seems like. We got Davey Martinez coming to town. He kind of surprised people with the Nationals picking him up. There's rumors of other people and other options. And Davey Martinez comes to town. He's a bench coach from Joe Madden in Tampa Bay, and then he followed him to Chicago. He's very, very knowledgeable. Everything you hear about he was made to be a manager. You just got to wonder, A, nothing can be worse than Dusty, right? So you got that going for you. And B, how's he going to handle these weapons he has? Because he's got a very good team, pitching and hitting. Does he just kind of let them do their thing? Does he kind of micromanage it? Does he get weird like Joe Madden does? A lot of late defensive subs and that kind of stuff. How's he going to do it? Because we really don't know, or I don't really know how he's going to manage things, and that'll be a way to look into it. You mentioned Cora, how he handles the pitching staff this year with the Red Sox. I think there'll be a lot of that with the Nationals too, because you saw how many times Scherzer went out there when why was he out there? There's no reason for him to be out there. Little things like that. And Scherzer looked, he still pitched well in the postseason, but he was a little run down. There's no hiding that. So it'll be interesting to see how this new manager takes over, and can he give a little bit extra to help them take that next step in the postseason?
Yeah, I like Dave Martinez as a manager for sure. I mean, he obviously, like you said, he's been under Madden's wing for a long, long time. I always thought that he was going to take one of the younger teams in baseball because that's sort of how he started underneath Madden with a young team and sort of built that up and helped him get there. But this is a home run hire for I think the Nationals, and it's a home run team that he ended up getting to manage in Davey Martinez. I think if you asked Davey Martinez a few years back, what type of team you would get, it would be my point earlier that he'd get a young rebuilding team and have to start from scratch. And now he gets a team that is literally ready to win now, and Bubba has to win now because of your next point.
Yep, segue. It's do or die time, and we said it all last year, and they let it down, and this is literally the last stand. Is guys are leaving. It's coming up. I really don't need to echo too much more. We said it: Harper, Scherzer, Gio, Roark. The list goes on and on. There's teams getting old, and it's getting time to call it a day. You got the likes of Zimmerman and Howie Kendrick and Matt Wieters. They're not the greatest guys, but they really fit this club. And you look at their bench, and their bench isn't that great to me. It's Miguel Montero, you got Matt Adams, Wilmer Defoe, Matt Reynolds, and Brian Goodwin. It doesn't strike fear into you. Sure, Victor Robles is sitting there ready to pounce. We know that. Carter Keyboom, he's in single A, so you got time there. There's most of the guys. Eric Fetty might come up and pitch, but most of your guys are a ways away outside of Robles and Fetty. So you got to make it happen now, or it might be a few years before you're competitive again. And not just your guys leaving. There's some teams we're about to talk about here that are darn close, like 2019, 2020. They're going to be really, I believe, contending for more than a wild card. They're going to be contending for a division in this league. So the reign of just kind of easy going in the East is going to be coming to an end real quick. They won the East by 20 games last year. So the odds of that happening in the next few years is going to keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So they need to do it now.
Yeah, sort of almost the same, not quite, but almost the same as the Indians, as we mentioned last week in the AL Central. So I can't really add too much to that. This is the year. They're gonna lose Bryce Harper unless something drastic happens. I know the Cubs got Darvish, so do they have the room to sign Harper? I'm not sure they do. Maybe a Philadelphia type or a Boston type, or who knows? He's always rumored to go to the Yankees. The Dodgers will always be there. So this is the year, Bubba. Let's move on.
If Bryce Harper comes back to the Nationals, I'll wear a Los Angeles Dodgers hat for all of next season on this podcast.
Okay, folks, let's write this down. It's 8:44 p.m. Eastern time. It is March 20th, 2018. Yeah, okay, so let's see if that happens. It's not going to happen, but yeah, that would be funny if it did. So
that's what I'm saying. It'd be fun.
Let's
for the show.
Let's move on to the next team, and it's going to be quick. It's the Miami Marlins. They somehow finished second last year, 77-85. I think the first point here is obviously a complete rebuild by Derek Jeter and co. I mean, they bought the team. A lot of scrutiny by him. You got rid of Stanton for nothing. Got rid of Ozuna for very little. He did well on the Yelich deal, but obviously the jury's still out on Brinson, Harrison, and Diaz. I mean, 5 of their top 8 prospects, according to Fangraphs, came from the Ozuna Yelich deals. So that tells you how bad the Marlins system was before this and sort of how it is now, because most of those prospects weren't rated highly in each of the organizations other than Brinson, and Harrison was there, and Diaz was sort of on that, top 10-ish for Brewers. But Alcantara and a couple of the other guys, the Cardinals, were really moving down. I mean, there was a lot of scrutiny for those guys. So this is a complete rebuild, and it's going to take quite a few years.
Yeah, it's going to take a few years. I'm happier than I thought I'd be with their lineup, but their rotation is disgusting.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, maybe not. I had a debate with someone earlier. Might not be as bad as the Rangers, but if it's not, it's next in line. It's horrible. So yeah, the rebuild's there. The offense will be at least entertaining, but I don't think they can score enough runs to keep up. So it's gonna be bad. I'm looking forward to Lewis Brinson, but yeah, it's bad. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and speaking of the rotation, it's like when they need Wei Ying Chen back and Jan Straley back, so it's just kind of crazy to think about. But anyways, next one is Lewis Brinson needs to be a stud. I mean, it's fact, not opinion. That's the get for Derek Jeter in the offseason. It's the headliner for a guy in Christian Yelich that had a tremendous contract for his value. I mean, it was sort of like an Archer contract where he's under control for quite a few years at pretty cheap money for his production. And to start this rebuilding process, they need Brinson to become the 2020, the 25-25 guy that we think he possibly could be. He's lowered his K percentage through the years in the minors, got it down to 18% in AAA last year. Didn't have a great start in Milwaukee at the second half of last year, but quick cup of coffee, 50 at bats. Like I said, 2020 potential, can cover a ton of ground defensively with his speed in that big outfield. They need him to become the center of that franchise.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to watching him. I took a gamble on him in a couple of late rounds in leagues, and he's off to a good spring, hitting 341. He's got a 1 homer, no steals. The scary part, like all young kids, in 44 at-bats, he struck out 13 times. So that is something to be very concerned about. Mm-hmm. But he's got 6 doubles to go along with his home run. So basically half his hits are extra bases. The guy's electric. He can be very entertaining, but he will slump. There will be growing pains. But yes, I agree. When he hits his potential, we're talking 2020, 25, and the loss of Yelich, like you said, won't hurt as much this part of the rebuild.
Absolutely. And the last part of this team that are left is Justin Bour and JT Realmuto, and are they next? I think that's a big question. They're under control for 3 more years, and like I said, they're the last 2 legit players from the Marlins. I mean, I don't really count Martin Prado or Brad Ziegler, even though they could get traded as well for something, but not as much as these guys could get. And I think the main guy is Realmuto. He's good defensively behind the plate, great offensive catcher. Most importantly, like I said, he's a catcher. So there's not many of those in this league that can do everything. And he's a young player. I know there's rumors of the Astros maybe going after him and quite a few other teams, but I think he could bring a legit prospect back where he's not making a ton of money over the next couple of years, arbitration eligible. And Justin Bour, although until he got hurt, was having a great year. You know, there's a lot of a lot of teams really don't need first baseman in baseball. So that's the tough part of the Justin Bour part. And we don't really know exactly who he is because last year was his first year that they really shined. And he's 29 years old, so he's not getting any younger. That'll be an interesting one, but I think they could get a lot for JT Realmuto.
I agree. I like Bour a ton. He had a great first breakout year, one would say, and he hit lefties well finally, so they gave him a shot. But he only played 108 games. He was hurt. He's 29. What you could get in return is going to be tough. He is going to be cheap, which will help. But again, what you said is you can get a Justin Bour type and Yonder Alonso and stuff like that for a lot cheaper. I think Bour's better, but you get the similar player. Realmuto, I agree. This guy is very, very, very good. He can run, catch. 18 steals ago, 17 homers, a 278 average. So there's a ton to like there behind the dish. He's only 26, cheap. So I'm glad they didn't just deal him when he was talking like he wanted out because you're gonna need to get at least a haul for him. Justin Bour might be tough. Realmuto, you need to get something back. So at least Jeter is kind of learning as he goes here that you don't just give everybody away.
Yep.
All right, that takes me to a team that I'm very, very excited about in the Atlanta Braves, coming off a 72-90 season. We know they're rebuilding. We already mentioned Ronald Acuna is not starting out, but my number one point is it is Acuna time. It's very simple. April 13th will not come here fast enough. This guy, I already read you his stats earlier in the podcast for the spring training. We know what he's done in the minors. He went through basically the entire minor system last year. The kid's like 20 years old. We've talked about him so much. I don't know what else I can possibly say about this guy, except he's going to walk in and Nick Markakis or Preston Tucker right now is the scheduled starting left fielder. So I'm pretty sure Preston Tucker's going to be looking for somewhere else to play come April 13th. And then it really makes that lineup scary with Inciarte, Albies, Freeman, Flowers, and a couple other pieces. You throw Acuna at the top there. I can't wait to see this kid. He's got, you want to talk 2020 potential. This kid's got that and maybe some more. So he might not do it this year, but he's got it, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. I'm very excited. I got him in the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational. I probably took him maybe slightly high, but not as high as some of the other leagues. So I have him there, and it's really the only spot I think I have him. So I'm very excited to watch him. He'll be up April 13th, hopefully. And there's really nothing much to add to that. That was the darling of the minors last year, and he's going to be in Atlanta for quite a long time.
Yeah, that one's one of them. And then how close are they? Because we've been talking about this rebuild for a while, but it seems like they make a couple moves and they bring some more old timers in. They make a couple moves and they make some. It just kind of keeps fluctuating. But man, you look at this system, and we already mentioned Acuna. Luis Gohara is a big-time left-handed pitcher. We saw him a little bit last year. He's banged up to start the year, so that is something that sucks. But they're projecting him. You start the season on the DL. It's an ankle sprain, so shouldn't be too bad. And, if anything, it limits his innings, which works for everybody. You got Mike Soroka, another guy in AAA. Kyle Wright, who they drafted last year in AA. Third baseman Austin Riley, who tore it up in the Arizona Fall League. Big-time power bat. And, they got Yohan Camargo starting out at third base this year. So you got that to look forward to. And it just goes down the list. Colby Alford's a pitcher. Max Fried's a pitcher. very, very good system we talked about. That's even after they lost X amount of players in that messed up deal, including Kevin my time. So things are still looking good there. But my question was, how close are they? I'm still thinking they're a couple years away. The bright side is they're going to have money to spend coming up here in the next few years. And they've already kind of hinted that they want to do it. They want to spend money. They were almost took a chance on Moustakas this year, and it wouldn't have been a 1-year deal. I think that's why it probably didn't happen. He wanted a big multi-year deal. They probably offered him a multi-year deal, but it wasn't what he expected. After this year, they're going to lose Casimir, McCarthy, Markakis, Flowers, Suzuki, Moylan, Chris Stewart. All are off the books after this year. So they are going to have a ton of cash coming in next year. And that'll be the decision. Do they go big with their young talent, or do they wait till 2020 and wait for more prospects to develop? But they're darn close to making this happen.
Yeah, they're definitely gonna have the money for the Bryce Harpers and the Manny Machados of the world. I'm not sure that the Braves would ever spend that much money on a free agent. I think it could be more likely that they go for a Josh Donaldson. I know he's a little bit older, but if they think they're going to be able to perform and contend in the next couple of years, you put that guy with Albies, with Enciarte, with Freeman, with Acuna, and then the rest of the guys that are coming up, it's huge. I think the big thing that we have to recognize here is I'm going to name them all: Gohara, Soraka, Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson, Kobe Allard, Max Fried, Joey Wentz. Those are all their top prospects that are somewhere, whether it's Baseball Prospectus, Baseball America, the MLB top 100, they're all in the top 100. Kyle Wright was their first-round pick last year. We could see him this year. You mentioned Gohara, probably see Soraka as well. So McCarthy and Casimir aren't going to be there for long. This could be very, very quick. I mean, them and the Phillies are in a race to jump the Mets and really contend with the Nationals if they can somehow figure out the Phillies need pitching. The Braves need hitting, quote-unquote hitting. They need a power bat to go with Freddie Freeman. I think that's the missing part of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's really close. And with all those pieces, maybe they go and get like 3 or 4 pieces and build it that way, because they are close to making this happen.
Yep.
And that kind of it was tough to go too deep on the Braves because they're in this rebuild. Yeah. So my last step was, well, what's next? And I think it's going to be, you get Acuna in there. Can Albies make that next step? This is a good time to see exactly what holes you need to fill that aren't as obvious as some we've mentioned, because their bench is pretty weak. Their starting staff isn't horrible. We mentioned guys are going to be free agents. We got the young guys coming up. Well, what do we have those young guys? Do they just become long relievers like a Davinsky, or do they actually have something? What's the bullpen? AJ Minter's a good setup man. I think he's closing by season's end. Or does Arodys Vizcaíno have what it takes to be that closer? There's a lot of interesting little pieces there to see where it fits. I think this year is going to be kind of that, they've been just letting guys play, getting salary off the books for a while. I think this year, is Dansby Swanson your future shortstop, or do we have to go elsewhere? Little things like that. This is the year to decide it while you have all that money coming up to go big. Yeah,
and that whole international pool money is going to be gone for, I believe, a couple years because of all that, because of all the issues they had in the offseason. Losing Maitan didn't help them at all. Swanson's definitely that wild card. Former number 1 pick in baseball, has looked awful. But if he can somehow figure it out, that's another guy that they maybe weren't counting on at the beginning of the season.
Yep, exactly. And reports out of spring is he's looking a lot better.
Yep. All right, let's go to the New York Mets. Terrible year last year, 70-92. Obviously, the first question everywhere with the Mets in every preview is, can the rotation stay healthy? They finally got rid of Ray Ramirez, but the answer is always no, in my opinion. But as long as Syndergaard and DeGrom stay healthy, they have a shot at the wild card. Because, again, we talk about, top of the rotation, a duo in baseball, and Strasburg and Scherzer are number 1. Kershaw and wild card number 2 or could be in that top 5, Price, Sale, et cetera, et cetera. These two can be there. I mean, they can. I mean, we know Syndergaard throw 100 miles an hour. He can do whatever he wants. The both of them could be there, and they need them to stay healthy. They signed Jason Vargas in the offseason. I didn't understand that one. He's already hurt, and they have to hope Wheeler and Harvey stay healthy. And we all know that's not going to happen. Not to mention Steven Matz, who has looked better in spring training, which is a good thing. And he still has the potential to do that. But Many people think he might be a little bit soft and wasn't pitching through some things last year. At least the Mets did. So that's the big question this year.
It's the age-old question, it seems like, with the Mets is, can they stay healthy? And you hit it with Syndergaard and DeGrom. These are guys that could easily be top 5 Cy Young candidates at the end of the year. If they both stay healthy for the year, and that's a big if with these two, we could be comparing them to Strasburg and Scherzer by the season's end. Their stuff is that good. I completely agree with you there. It's just a matter of, someone, it was on one of the Fangraphs podcasts, Syndergaard throws like a 93-mile-an-hour slider. Sliders aren't supposed to go that fast. Like there's certain things your arm just shouldn't be doing. So it's a question of, can he stay healthy? And DeGrom, we went in on him in our Battle of the Podcast League. So, thoughts and prayers that he does stay healthy. But it's a big question. Vargas already hurt, and the rest of the rotation, like you said. So we shall see.
Yeah, the next one, this one will be quick, along with the last one probably too, is why Adrian Gonzalez over not only Dominic Smith, but I've seen many people kind of today say, well, why not Wilmer Flores as well? Give him a shot. He could be pretty good. So that is the big question. I just don't understand why they would go Adrian Gonzalez over anybody. I don't care what you think of Dominic Smith. This is your chance to give him a shot because Adrian Gonzalez is done. He's almost 36 years old. He's washed up. He's got no power left. He'll probably end up hitting 285. And you know what that is? That's James Loney. So what James Loney is. They've had him before too. This makes no sense to me at all. It should be Dominic Smith full-time or him and Wilmer Flores in maybe a platoon. I'm not sure. Get Wilmer Flores everywhere, but Adrian Gonzalez at first base for the Mets is stupid.
Yeah, this deal made no sense to us besides the fact he's basically free. That's the only thing that made us.
So is Dominic Smith.
I know, like 1% of it made sense. I felt if they wanted to get a first baseman, well, Jay Bruce could have played first, and they signed him because they have plenty of outfielders to play around with. Or go sign Lomo or Lucas Duda, not Adrian Gonzalez. That's just the way I saw it. I agree. Dominic Smith, see what you got with the kid because pretty soon your pitching staff isn't going to be around. They are young, but it's a beat-up young group down there. So see what these kids have. I love Wilmer Flores. I wanted him to play first or third, and now he's back to the bench after they signed Todd Frazier. So it's kind of the typical Mets where you look at their roster and there's talent where you're like, okay, yeah, I could see this kind of working. But then you look at the roster at the same time and go, what the heck were they thinking? So, yeah, Adrian Gonzalez, hopefully they realize after like a month that we need to just walk away because that's the beauty of him being free. They can drop him for nothing.
I hope the Mets aren't looking at Dominic Smith at the end of last season in 183 plate appearances and saying, well, he struck out 27% of the time. He only batted 198, blah, blah, blah. From 2015 to 2017, he's batted over 300 every single time. And by the way, last year, he batted 330 at AAA with 16 homers. So maybe he doesn't have 30 homer potential as a first baseman. You want more than that, but the kid can hit. He's not a 200 hitter. That's crazy. Third one is, and this was a huge, huge loss. Can they stay in the race until Conforto comes back? I mean, Conforto finally came out of his shell and was just unbelievable last year. I mean, he really was. If they could add Conforto to that lineup, I mean, that lineup and Cespedes stays healthy, it's not a terrible lineup. It's not the worst lineup that the Mets have ever had. I know we talk with the Giants all the time and how this lineup this year is probably better than some of the lineups they've had in World Series years because it is what it is with the names that they have and the potential of those guys where, your World Series years were Bumgarner and the bullpen and just scratching out runs here and there. That was sort of the same with the Mets for the last few years. They were never leading the league in home runs or runs or anything like that. It was always the pitching. So they need Conforto back, and they need to stay in the wild card race until he does get back.
Yeah, you said it. He came out of his shell in 440 plate appearances, 27 homers, 68 ribbies, hitting 280. There's nothing not to like about that. And the good thing is because, initial reports where he'd be back maybe a little before the All-Star break, maybe a month before the All-Star break. Well, now he's already playing in minor league games. He's already playing half of games, and people are talking, he might just miss April now. Like, he's coming back way sooner than expected. a lot of the projection sites that Fangraphs uses are the lowest is a 464 outbacks. Most have them are 454. Most have them around 500, but they're all projected for more at bats than he had last year. And I just read you off some of his simple numbers. So that is a big plus for your fantasy people out there, because I started buying in once I saw these reports coming out. But B, if, like you said, if he jumps in there, it's tremendous, because Brandon Nimmo is having a great spring. This kid can play. It gives them luxury. Like I said, you can move Bruce to first. You can play another outfielder. I still agree Dominic Smith needs to be the guy. But I somehow I just don't think they think that for some reason. So you move Bruce there. You have Nimmo and Conforto and Cespedes in the outfield, or you have a rotation with Nimmo as the fourth outfielder. Whatever it is, it's going to be an upgrade. So if it's only a month and a half compared to the 3 months or so, this is going to be huge for the Mets to maybe make something of this season.
Yep, agreed.
All right, let's go to the Philadelphia Fighting Phillies. Yeah, boy, I do like this team a lot, contrary to what I said about them last week in their Jake Arrieta decision. And let's just go right at it. Jake Arrieta. They signed him. He got paid, however you want to describe it. It happened. He's a very expensive babysitter. So we'll see what he does for them. His stuff just dwindled. I read the stats off last week. Fly ball rate's up. Velocity's down. He did have a good second half. Yes, he did. But that fly ball rate in that ballpark, which was the best home run hitting ballpark in all of baseball last year, is terrifying. He will be pitching with Aaron Nola. Again, Rocky Resorts has Aaron Nola as the number one of the staff. I think he is, but we'll see what the Phillies think. And then Vinny Velasquez, Nick Pivetta, and Blake Lively or Ben Lively, not Blake Lively. That would be wrong. But Ben Lively. So Jake Arrieta is joining this rotation. He does help the rotation. I didn't argue that point. I just argued the finances. It's just a matter of, can he get back to the Jake of old, the Jake the Snake that everybody loved? Because if he can do that, he can really make this team sneakier than I thought. But if not, this is going to be one that's going to blow up, and it could just unravel these young kids. Because these young kids, to keep this rebuild going, need to keep winning. They were 66 and 96 last year, and they were on pace at one point to seem to be going more in the 70 win totals. And I think they're more of a 75 win team this year. So it'll be interesting to see how Jake, his impact on this team in the clubhouse and on the field.
Yeah, you know what I think of that deal. I don't think it hurts them in the long run, and I think it obviously improves them this year. I agree. I don't think they're hopefully they'll be in contention for most of the year. Like, you have to hope that, because you want to see progress as a Phillies fan, and you should get excited. Like, obviously it's a big market. Philly is. It's not Boston and New York where we're always spending up to $200 million. They just don't do that. But at the same time, if I was a Phillies fan, I'd be excited about this team. I'd watch a ton of the games if I was a casual fan, just to kind of see all these young guys, come up and perform. And, there's more young guys coming up.
Yep. Segue. Scott Kingery is having another great spring. I think we were talking about him before spring even started. We wanted this kid to play, and he's getting it done and getting it done well, and he's making it very tough for the Phillies to find out what they're going to do with him. The infield's locked up with Franco and Crawford at shortstop and Cesar Hernandez at second, who I absolutely love Cesar Hernandez. And I think Crawford deserves a shot at shortstop, because I didn't like how they brought him up last year and then played him at third and second. I didn't like that at all. Problem is, that's kind of what you're going to have to do with Kingery for now. I think ideally his spot's going to be third base, because I was once a Maikel Franco guy. I'm starting to get kind of worried that that's not going to happen. But it could be wrong. So Kingery could be that, ultimate utility guy playing 5 games a week or something, which would still be very, very good. So that's going to be a big piece. You got Sixto Sanchez in Double-A. Maybe you see him later in the season as like a late bullpen if they're in it. You got young Jorge Alfaro catching every day. So you're starting to see some of this youth movement coming up. But Scott Kingery, to me, he's not Ronald Acuna. I don't want to say that, but he is the Phillies' hope of that. Like, he's not going to be that level of talent, but he's, I guess, I don't know if I'm phrasing it right way. He's the young guy they want to see this year, and hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I think it's in terms of, the potential that we've seen, and sort of the scouts saying Acuna has been like this maybe forever. Maybe not forever, but at the same time, I don't think they expected Acuna to go through the system like he did last year, but they have always touted him as one of the top prospects in baseball. And I don't think that's been the case with Kingery. I sort of compare him to a little bit. I compare him to this as a prospect. Okay. Sort of a Howie Kendrick, Mookie Betts type, where the two of them for a long time weren't in the top 100 prospects in baseball. They sort of came out of nowhere, especially Kendrick. Now, I'm not saying he had a great career, but like Mookie was a second baseman and he was playing really, really well, but he was never on that top 100 list until, he got up into the higher levels. And I think the same goes with Kingery. I mean, 2016, he had 5 homers and he's batting, 270 and, striking out a lot. Now, all of a sudden, last year, he's got 26 homers with 29 RBIs and he batted like 300. So something happened with him last year. He came out of nowhere. And I really, really believe that he'll end up at third base by no later than June 1st. I really do. I'm out of Maikel Franco. Guy was a minus WAR last year. I know he batted a little bit better in the second half in terms of his average and whatnot, but I'm out. I'm out of Maikel Franco. Gabe Kapler talked him up a little bit, saying he's still got potential, blah, blah, blah. What's his potential? I mean, what is it really?
No, I agree. And you mentioned that WAR stat. That's one of those sabermetric stats that Gabe Kapler is a sabermetric guy. Mm-hmm. So maybe he will look into that. And I think he might be up before June, but I think maybe a full-time role close to what you're saying. And I hope so. So last point I have here, and like I mentioned when we started the NL East, you have the Nationals, and then you have a bunch of rebuild teams outside of the Mets. And we hit the Braves, and we've hit the Marlins, and now we're hitting the Phillies, and it's 2019 or 2020. I'm leaning more towards 20 for the fact that they'll get a couple more salaries off the books. Some of their salaries decrease a bit. You let some of these young guys, I mentioned Sixto Sanchez, who's filthy young arm in the minors, and some other things take place because they have a bunch of ARB eligible guys coming up. I think they're close. They're not quite there yet. And I know they're going to start spending some more money. They're expected to have a payroll of about $95 million this year. So they're still well below what they can be. But I still think they're going to hold that money bag for one Mike Trout. So they don't want to blow it all right away. So I think more like 2020 is their window to really start making a push. What do you think?
I think 2020 is their real window to start making a push for sure. I think 2021, when they go get Trout, is their window to win a World Series. I think that, 2020 – next year, you should be talking wild card. You should. There's no reason why they shouldn't be talking wild card next year with Sixto Sanchez hopefully ready to be part of that rotation. Nola continues. Arrieta, hopefully his velocity doesn't go down too much. That's a decent top 3 starters if Sanchez is what we think he is. So next year is when they should start for a wild card, and then we'll see what happens with the Nationals. 2020, maybe we're talking division, and then 2021, we're talking Mike Trout coming to the Phillies, coming home and signing with the Phillies, and them getting back up to that $165 million payroll or whatever it is, and really, really starting to take a hold of that NL East, depending on what the Braves and the rest of the guys do in terms of the young players.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's a fun rebuilding division. Let's talk our predictions, the standings. Cutting to Pacoda, got the Nationals at 88 and 74, and then a tie for second between the Mets and the Phillies at 81 and 81. You got the Braves at 76 and 86, and then the Miami Marlins. When was the last time you looked at this, Mo?
Oh, it's probably been a couple weeks. Where they got them at, like 40?
65 and 97. my rule of thumb is when predicting winners, you always say, okay, every team's going to win and lose 60, and then you have to decide what you do with the other 60.
Yeah.
Apparently they ain't anything with the other 60.
Yeah, I know.
That's bad right there. So my standings, Nationals, I think that's pretty easy. But then I go Mets, Phillies, Braves, Marlins. So I guess I have it the same way they do, but I don't have it tied for second, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I've got the same exact thing. Yeah, I think the Mets, again, provided Syndergaard and DeGrom stay healthy, and the Cespedes, and then Conforto comes back to full health. I think the Mets will be in that wild card race. I really, really do, because I think they're good enough to be there. I know there are other teams, but I think the teams in the AL West, and again, we'll give our full sort of wild card and division. We gave our division obviously, but we'll give our full wild card and World Series and whatnot next week. But I just think that the NL West will beat up on each other, at least those middle three teams, and the Padres will sneak in a few wins here and there. So I think there'll be a lot of a lot of games that are split between those teams, and the Mets have a much easier division to go after.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We will break down full postseason predictions, full awards, bold predictions, over-unders. Next week will be a big last final season preview, because we'll record next Tuesday and the season will start next Thursday. We have real baseball that matters, Mo.
Let's go.
Just about 9 days away. 9 days away. Teddy ball game, 9 days away. I don't know. I think you guys call him Teddy ball game. I can't remember. Frozen head. Frozen head.
Yeah, it's Teddy
ball. Head. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that'll wrap us up. Episode 56 in the books. Again, this is your AL East, NL East preview. Check us out on Twitter at AroundBasesPod. You can find the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spreaker. Working on a few other venues to check it out. Give it a rate and review. That'll help us out quite a bit. But until next week, Around the Bases, episode 56. Catch you guys later.
See you.